The April 24th, 2018 meeting of the City of Lawrence Redevelopment Commission is called to order. A quorum is present. Commissioner Sullivan, Commissioner Blunt, Commissioner Hicks, myself. Also present is David Johnson, Corporate Counsel, and Cam Starnes. The first order of business is the approval of minutes from the March 27th, 2018 meeting. The commissioners have reviewed the minutes. Are there any questions? Okay. I would make only a comment on the minutes before they're approved. Cam, you had some very important things to say about the work we needed to do in order to move certain projects forward in the last minutes. And we need to kind of review those, kind of go over those one more time. Only we're going to have to get more specific about getting some things knocked out, I think, especially the reviews with the commissioners on certain matters.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. And with that, I'd appreciate a motion for.
Mr. President, this is, I will acknowledge, very minor matter, but the minutes do reflect during the discussion the presence of Mr. Fenwick, but when we list up at the top those present for the meeting, Mr. Fenwick is not listed. An admittedly minor matter.
Okay, well, that is, and that may be for this reason. Mr. Fenwick was not present as the meeting started, if you recall. He popped in for a limited engagement meeting, 10 minutes, because that's what I promised. He would be here for no more than that. And then when I was watching my watch, when the 10 minutes were up, he left. So that's probably the reason. But we could make a note. Could you note that? Thank you.
I don't know that it makes much difference. It just.
Well, it is, because he made a commitment at that meeting. I didn't.
Seemed a little odd to me that we list as present some people who didn't speak, but don't list as present someone who did speak.
Jason, at the last meeting, he was asked, how often should we expect updates on performance against our budget? Okay. And there wasn't a specific listed at that particular point in time. He just nodded his head that we would get updates. Well, Jason can't be here today because he's at another meeting, another conference actually, but he will be here next month, and we will have an update of performance against budget next month, as well as the monthly financials, neither one of which we have for this meeting. Any other comments on the minutes? Hearing none, may I have a motion for approval? So moved by Commissioner Blunt. And a second, please. By Commissioner Hicks. All in favor by show of hands. Thank you. Unanimous. Next order of business would be the approval of the claims, vouchers actually. Cab, would you like to speak to these?
I don't know that there's anything really specifically or specific or unusual to address unless there are some questions from the commissioners.
Okay. Can I ask a question on the ones for the, obviously we're paying the Marion County Treasurer for parcels of property that we own.
Yes.
And then the second one is a payment to an engineering firm concerning the brownfields. Now, do you know if this $6,000 is going to be offset by a grant?
It is.
It is.
Entirely, 100%. So
that is.
And will not be drawn on the TIF in the first place. So.
Okay, great. The only missing voucher we have this month, which we can expect every month, is the billing from Taft.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, timing, it must not have made it through the controller's office process to be on this list.
No questions from the commissioners. Would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
By Commissioner Hicks. Second, please. Commissioner Sullivan. And all those in favor by show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the staff reports. Cam, please.
Sure. And a few things just to highlight pretty quickly here. The Lilly Arts Grant that we discussed at the last meeting, I just wanted to briefly update you all and say that the executive summary was submitted even in advance of the deadline, so we're waiting for some feedback from the Lilly Endowment about the batch of applicants who will move forward to the formal application process. But it came together well. I think, again, it was a good team effort, mostly handled by Judy Byron at Arts for Lawrence, with some good partners from local firms that pitched in. So I thought it came together well, and we'll keep our fingers crossed. Beyond that, East 59th Street, I think I said at the last meeting we can anticipate some meetings on an individual level over the course of April. That's been, obviously that didn't happen. I would anticipate those in May. We've just been going through the process of talking to Meyer about their investment and what would make sense. And I had hoped that we would be in a place where we could meet on those in April, but not quite. So I think I would anticipate that in the coming weeks in May. So I'll be contacting you further about that project. And likewise, the Trades District gets to, obviously, something that's a new business in terms of approval of language for an RFP to market and sell a site that this commission owns. But beyond that, did have a chamber symposium event. Jerry and David and Brian were all able to join us for that, and I thought it went well. I thought the city of Lawrence and its various stakeholders and partners were well represented. It was a well-attended event. Had a good panel discussion with moderated by Gary Dick of Inside Indiana Business, with Ivy Tech and the state Chamber of Commerce and
Right.
and McKinsey Career Center and the current CEO and president of Bloomerang here on the fort, all taking part in that. So thank you to the commissioners who were able to make it. I think it came together fairly well. It's a new event for the chamber. We were happy to partner in that. So the concept of the Trades District is something I think continues to have some momentum. I think there was some interesting discussions even with McKinsey Career Center folks and Lawrence Township about what it might look like long-term to have a facility focused on trades that would be operated at least in part by the Lawrence Township schools in the Trades District that would really focus on that workforce development piece that I think will be really important. So that's exciting and good to have that partnership. And I think anybody who took the tour at McKinsey was well impressed with. That's a pretty unique and world-class facility that they have there. It's doing a lot of really interesting career training things for the city and the township. So,
Comments from the attendees from that meeting?
I'd like to say thank you to Cam and to Taft for sponsoring us to be there. And yes, I agree that it was well done.
Sure was.
Good.
David?
Yeah, thanks to everyone that attended, and thanks Cam for having a little presentation and hosting us at your table. And I took the tour. It was my first time in there, and it was very impressive.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a best-kept secret in Lawrence, even though it's not a secret, but I went to high school here, and I've never been in there. And
And they've been at it a while. It really is impressive, and I think has some.
The concept of trades is lost in that center. The traditional trades is a very small piece of what's there. It was pretty amazing. The other thing that was amazing in talking, there's a fellow named Dr. Frank Schwarzkopf who runs the place. Another thing that he mentioned, kind of answering a barrage of questions as we went through on the tour. Are the needs of those seeking that kind of training being met? And he said, no, they're not. And in fact, we have in this one area we were in at that particular time, which was the electronic side of automotive. He said, there are 60 people, 60 students that would like to participate in this program. Can't get them in, no room. So the second thing was, that surprised me, was I said, well, if you had, I shouldn't say that. I said, is it a problem with the facility, or is it a problem with teachers? Thinking that he would answer teachers. Wrong. It's facility. He said, in quote, he said, I had no trouble getting teachers at all. He says, there are people out there who, because of the physical challenges of some of these things, they look forward to teaching, to sharing their knowledge, as opposed to being physically involved with the work. So it's a question of having the facilities to address it. The other thing that was surprising about that tour, I'm sorry, I'm kind of off the rails here a little bit, was the amount of participation that they have from the from the businesses, but the community in general. They have some really outstanding equipment there, and it's up to date. Well, to use one example, one that I would be probably most familiar with, the stuff that they had in the computer labs. I mean, it's not old clunky stuff. The old clunky stuff's over in the corner somewhere. It's very up to date. So anyway, my 2 cents worth. Thank you, Cam.
Oh, that's great.
Thanks very much for hosting.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks to David and his company Office Works also sponsored the event. It was great to see that as well, so thank you. Thanks for attending. I didn't get this on the list, but I did want to provide an update about 42nd and Post, which is an area that we've talked about over the course of the meeting to this commission the last couple of years. In the last month, the current owner of the Mason Gardens property now has 42nd Place Studio Apartments at least under contract and may have closed on its purchase, which is, I think, seen by most all folks in the community and here at the city as a very positive thing. The owner, Gated Properties, has undertaken, despite recent news about an event there, over the course of its ownership in the last year or two, has made substantial improvements and actually have resulted in a drastic reduction of police runs and emergency medical runs into the property. The units are being updated. The utilities through there are being updated. Lighting has been increased. Cameras have been increased. The policies with regard to tenants and behavior has been stricter, and I think the Lawrence Police folks have gotten to know the owners well. They've made good inroads with public safety here in Indianapolis, as well as with community groups like Cafe on the Far East Side, and I think that's been well-received news. And I think the idea is that the buildings that are there at 42nd Place Studio Apartments will be demolished, which is something that the community also welcomes. I think the Cafe and various stakeholder groups realize that those small studio apartments in that location are unlikely, even if they were to be updated and released, to attract positive new tenants to the area. So there was a real push to avoid that type of scenario, and I think it's a win in that regard that the buildings will be demolished. They're dated and not configured in a way to really sustain new positive investment from residents new to the area. So we'll see what the end goal is or development. I talked to the principal of the ownership group, and he's thinking more along the lines of a positive commercial development, something that would be an amenity to the area, which is, I think, will be welcomed as well. So that's good news. It's transpired fairly recently, and I wanted to update you all since it's an area that we've discussed and have some concerns regarding. So,
Cam, when you first started that, you mentioned Mason Gardens and an adjacent property. Tell me the configuration again.
So this company, Gated Properties, owns Mason Gardens now and manages it.
Huh?
They have now are in the process or have purchased, and I'll not call one way or the other because I'm not certain off the top of my head.
Oh, you didn't say.
42nd Place Studio Apartments, which are adjacent to
That's
Mason
what's
Gardens.
being torn down?
Yes.
Thank you.
Which is smaller than some of the other problem properties just on the Indianapolis side of that border, but has been an eyesore and a blighted property for quite some time. So that's good news.
That's great.
Good. That's, any questions or other items for discussion prior to new business?
Before we start new business?
Yeah.
In our minutes from last meeting, we were going to talk about grant money spend down.
On the EPA Brownfields grant. Good point. I did have just yesterday a conference call with our project officer at EPA Region 5 and our consultant. I think the current balance of our grant is around $150,000. It's a $400,000 grant, so we've managed to spend through that mostly in the last year to 18 months, pretty quickly. And I've been working with our consultant to put a plan together to bring some new sites into the program and get that spent down in advance of I think the grant deadline under the cooperative agreement expires September 30th of this year. Now, a grantee can apply for an extension if needed. We're hoping to avoid that scenario and thinking that honestly the 59th Street property may be a good target property to do some additional assessment work and spend that down in a hurry. We're also going to be doing likely an updated phase 1 for the Shadeland property. And again, we'll get to that a little bit later. We've managed to keep the phase 1 current on the selected site for the new police station and apply for a comfort letter that would benefit the city of Lawrence and the building corps. And we'll be doing a cohort of phase 1s around the 7600, 7602 Pendleton Pike properties and the former Knights Inn on Sellers as we prepare to move those toward the market as well. So we do have some projects lined up that should take chunks out of the grant moving forward and hopefully not even have to apply for an extension, but that's always an option if we need it. But the EPA is very happy with the progress of the grant and with the projects we've been able to leverage to date, and especially including Mission Mechanical and the prospect that we may be able to do some more good with the grant monies.
Did you say we have 150 left?
Yes.
And that's what this $6,000 comes off of? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it's 144 now, or?
I think that's already been counted.
Okay.
So 150.
Thanks for bringing
that
that up.
or so. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
Thanks for that reminder.
Okay. And to new business. Cam, I'm on my list now. The first item is to approval of an amendment to Hanson Professional Services engagement.
Yes, and did the amendment come through in the packets to you all?
Yeah, well,
No, I didn't include them in the packets. It was sent in the email. You may.
Electronically? Okay, you have one.
it was in the, well, it wasn't in the packet this morning, but
Not today.
it was in the email.
On Friday?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
good. And I had hoped that we would have Hanson here to speak
Yeah.
to this. I think Bill had told me he had lined them up to be here.
Well, and so did, I thought Bill, yeah, exactly.
Yes. So I was anticipating we would see them. Given that I do not, I can speak to what I know here. The Franklin Road project has progressed through right-of-way engineering and valuation of various pieces of right-of-way to be acquired by the Public Works Department in order to accomplish construction of the Franklin Road project. If you can all picture the segment of Franklin Road just south of the railroad tracks where there's a one-story red building right near Franklin Road and the tracks. That building has a tenant in it, and the engineers have determined that it would be ideal
Looking at it right now.
to.
I thought this would be easier.
Yes, I apologize. If there's need to refer to that, maybe we could print additional copies if there's a need for that.
Got it, look. All right.
That property will likely be a complete take. So instead of buying a chunk of it, I think the DPW and the engineers have determined that it's best to buy that entire property and take down the building to accommodate the road project and the new traffic signal that will go there. The current tenant in that building has then triggered its rights under, I believe, federal law to be relocated. That relocation expense will be borne by the Public Works Department, but there is an element of that triggers additional services by the engineers themselves. And so they've asked for an amendment of $3,500, $3,550.
$3,550, yeah.
To the contract for services related to that relocation on the engineering side as a portion of the preliminary engineering for the project. So it really amounts to an additional cost of $3,550 to the RDC to accomplish that. And I think I would tend to be in agreement with Public Works and the engineers that building provides currently as it sits is a sightline hazard, especially given that 46th Street would now run north of the tracks. And it also, once it's taken and the building is down and 46th Street is vacated, provides a triangle that could be a nice location for a small green space pocket park kind of transition from the developed area to Franklin Road that might be a nice amenity to the corridor. So we've long thought that might be a good way for that property to go, and this is engineering services that would go toward making that happen.
Okay, there wasn't a site plan for the parcel.
Okay.
Okay, so if this sounds like a dumb question, my fault, because is the property we're talking about on both sides of that road?
Of
46th.
no,
It used to be 46th.
it's the triangle that is north of what used to be 46th.
Yeah. to the railroad
Between that and the railroad tracks.
Gotcha.
So Franklin Road borders on the east, 46 to the south, and the tracks to the sort of northwest.
Got it.
It is small.
Very small.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I was trying to read and pay attention at the same time.
Sure.
Afraid the reading got the best of me. It's that little brick building?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
I guess my question is this, the words Lawrence Redevelopment Commission do not appear anywhere in this amendment. It says that it refers to a contract between the city of Lawrence and Hanson. And so and the signature line just says local public agency. So this doesn't look like it's ours from the way I read this.
And I believe that is consistent with the initial engineering engagement. It's the city of Indianapolis that procured the services. The Redevelopment Commission is funding the contract. So the approval to fund this amendment would come from this body. And again, that was...
I mean, who signs this? My question is, why are we being asked to approve this if our name doesn't appear on here anywhere?
I think it's relative to the funding of the contract, honestly. But as to who signs this, I believe we would want it to be consistent with the prior engagement, which I believe was.
Well, does that mean to say that our name isn't on the prior contracts either?
I don't know that it is.
I mean, you understand my question?
Yeah,
I do.
It says here, whereas City of Lawrence, subsequently referred to as local public agency, and Hanson have entered this into agreement, we hereby approve this agreement, but we're not the City of Lawrence. We're the Redevelopment Commission, right?
Yes,
Where's Bill when we need him?
exactly.
Does our lawyer give us some guidance on this? I don't understand why, if the contract is with us, then it should say the Lawrence Redevelopment Commission, not the City of Lawrence. If the contract's not with us, then why are we approving it?
That's a good point, and if I had written this, it would have said the City of Lawrence maybe buying through the Redevelopment Commission if we had to say that, but it doesn't say that, I didn't write it. talked to Bill about this, just before, well, earlier this afternoon as part of another meeting. He just kind of briefed me on what was going on, but at this
I mean, $3,500 isn't worth the time we're spending on it, but I just,
Is it something that needs approved today? Amendment?
Good question. I think that is, my hesitation would be not wanting to shift the timeline by another 30 days. I do think this is a fair question. I think the initial contract that this is an amendment to is to the city of Lawrence. The Redevelopment Commission would be approving this only as to the funding thereof, and as it has funded the Hanson Engineering contract for preliminary engineering services
So we wouldn't
on
sign.
Franklin Road. So the mayor would likely sign the actual contract, or Bill as the Director of Public Works. The approval that's requested here is just to say we will provide the $3,500 to cover the amendment in terms of cost.
Coming out of the 706 account?
Is it 706? I think it's,
Must have been reading my mind,
is it 706 or 806?
yeah.
Yes, the Pendleton Pike TIF account. Because this is entirely within that allocation area.
so if I,
Oh, that's okay.
as I understand the bidding, what we're really not being asked to approve this amendment. What we're being asked to do is to agree that when the time comes, the money will be $3,500 will be transferred from us to the city to pay Hanson.
We
Is that about right?
will approve the claim. It will come along with the other Hanson claims and paid, I think paid directly through the controller's office pursuant to the authorization from the 706 or 806 account.
And so this would be an additional $3,500 that wasn't in our budget for this year, but that we're now committing ourselves to.
Yes.
That is correct. That is definitely correct.
And-
The other thing I would tell you,
remind me,
not to
what-
muddy,
what
not
is
to
the
muddy the
balance?
water at all, but when Bruce Kimberly and I met with Bill to discuss the entire, if you will, I'm not saying this right, Franklin Road situation, okay? This contract was at the core, really, of what we discussed. So it was, whether or not our name's here, it was kind of like our business. So,
Can you remind me what our balance is in that account?
Yeah, the current cash balance in that account is about $900,000.
And I wholeheartedly agree the brick building needs to come down. So I guess it's just a matter of do we correct the language that's in the amendment, or, as David maybe suggested, buying through the RDC?
And then going back to what's kind of gone back and forth, I'm not sure. I don't know who the original agreement was with. I think my understanding of it is that the city's agreement was with Hanson, and it kind of goes back several years. The RDC
that's true.
is paying for it through another agreement just to kind of
So back
fill
to,
in those gaps. So this would still be, yeah, it would be an amendment with the city, but like Cam was saying, it's the RDC that's paying for it, as the RDC has been paying for it under whatever agreement there was between the RDC and the city to cover that contract. That's my understanding of the agreement and how it's set up.
Mine as
Would it be
well,
I'm sorry.
and as David said, this is an arrangement we inherited.
Okay.
And similar to you and
So,
Bruce and.
would it be appropriate to
Bill and I.
say that the RDC is being asked to approve the payment of amendment number 5 using RDC funds, and the actual agreement signed would be signed by the mayor? Is that?
I think that is accurate. Yeah, the payment of, the funding of this
Can I
amendment.
have a motion to approve the payment of $3,550 on this contract? Because I want that building down too.
Yeah, I'm happy to make that motion.
And seconded by Commissioner Blunt. All in favor? Yeah, good points. Thank you very much.
Good points. I had forgotten that was the setup, but I believe that is the original arrangement, so this is an amendment to that.
So item number 2, approval of requests for proposals, language for 7600 Pendle Pike and associated properties.
Yes, and this is pursuant to, I think, the commission expressed previously that it would like to review proposed RFP language for that site before it went out, which I don't think would otherwise need or require under state law a formal approval, but we're happy to ask for that and answer any questions as to how the RFP has come together to the extent that any of you have had the opportunity to review it. But to summarize the highlights, it is for the entire site, which is 7600, 7602 Pendleton Pike and 4326 Cellar Street to the north, with a minimum bid of the average, rounded up, but the average of independent appraisals of those properties in the aggregate, and requests bids that would buy the entire property and have a minimum investment inclusive of purchase price of $3 million to develop the site, and make specific reference to the trades district plan and ask for proposals that are consistent with that in terms of being a skilled trades user or related type of development. So that really kind of narrows the field, if you will, of prospective bidders that would qualify to those that would invest fairly significantly in the site and take down the whole 3¼ acres there and make use of it in furtherance of the trades district plan. I think those are the operative terms. A lot of the rest of it is necessary in terms of instructions, and we'll add legal descriptions and some other details.
So we have the 2 appraisals back, and the average of them was 3 million, is that what you're hearing?
No, the average for valuation of the 3 parcels added together is about $900,000. So what we've asked for or what I've proposed in this language is that we ask for proposals for projects that would spend $3 million.
Okay.
So that we see that level of investment on land acquisition, but then vertical development and site development costs would all count. So it screens out somebody that wants to buy it and just put a little building on the corner or another gas station or
Now, this has not been issued yet, or has been?
Has not.
Because the dates in it were, the dates that were in here had.
They're a mess.
Sure.
So how was the $3 million number arrived at?
That was, I mean, the idea behind it was simply to put a minimum investment target on proposals for the site. And so that $3 million would simply be a floor for capital investment.
My question was, how was that number derived? Why 3 million and not 5 million or not $1.5 million?
Oh, well, realizing that the minimum bid for the property is $900,000 already, 2 million seemed like a sort of a minimum of what we would want to consider. I think we would certainly want a development that would be more 6, 7, 8, and hope to get something like that. 3 million seemed like a decent floor under which we wouldn't even want to consider anything.
I don't mean to persist, but I still haven't heard a reason as to why 3 and not $1.5 million or 7. I mean, we've talked since I've gotten here about the fact that we could turn around and put a gas station, service station complex on that property overnight. There'd be, and so how much what would be the investment if someone were to put a big multi-interstate service station complex, for example, on that property?
I think when we look at construction costs or real estate investment costs, a service station like that, independent of business personal property, would probably be about $60 a foot to construct. So, I mean, that probably adds up to a pretty big one. And that's partly why I think we're reviewing this language. If your input is we'd like to see that number be higher, fine. I really, in trying to construct a floor, looked at something that might be, if it's $80 a foot, then that's a more significant size building.
What would $60 a foot, what does that calculate out to?
Let's see, 3.5 acres. It's 3.5 acres?
It's 3.25.
Okay.
So if we're talking 2 million, I mean, that's, in the real estate development, minus so 3 minus the purchase price, $2 million, $60 a foot. I think you're looking at, what, 3,300 square feet? 33,000 square feet of a flex type of building. If it's a higher finish, more like an $80 square foot, an office use, then that's probably smaller. But again, this is just a floor. So, what do we want to see as a floor under which we wouldn't even want to consider any bids? And I think that's wanting to not screen out anything that was worth considering and balancing that versus, certainly hoping to see something that's well north of $3 million in total investment. I mean, that's what we're looking to find here.
Ryan, a commercial,
Well, I just ran the numbers. I don't know what you're thinking on improvements on a 3.75 acre. It would 50% and 50% parking green space.
I think the 3.25 acres would probably, I think we could probably be shooting for like 50,000 square feet in terms of office flex that would be a great fit there in a rear load configuration where you had, that would probably force you to put stormwater retention underneath parking and make a good productive use of the site with a better than 50% coverage. And I think that I'd certainly like to see that. That's probably more of a $6 to $7 million investment.
3
million.
That's 3 million, but that's just for the building.
At $60 a square
Yeah.
foot, which,
So then you do, I mean, what, the other property improvements, it costs what, 20 a square foot for the parking lot and something like that, so.
And if you've got a office use in there, it's probably a little higher in terms of the construction value per square foot. So again, I think
That's a minimum.
I think if I'm picturing the ideal development of this site, it's probably $6 to $7 million. If you want me to put 6 to 7, I will put it in the RFP. It was a matter of how do we discount that so that we're not screening out anything that would be worth considering. And so you discount that a little bit and realize that you could put up a 35,000 square foot building at a $60 a foot construction plus some parking and it be 3 million. Would we want to even consider that? I mean, nothing that comes in we will be obligated to accept. So this is really just a filter. How strong do we want the filter to be to say that, that bid is not even qualified because it didn't meet the floor? So there's not a lot of magic to the number other than knowing that we'd want to see something north of it, in my view.
So the two things that, Cam, this is old news to you. The two things I'm most concerned with is that we get a bidder who is the kind of bidder we want, who is a trades district kind of bidder. And then secondly, reading through this, and this is just a dates thing, I know. We just need to fix the dates. But we've got to, I want to be able to give these people enough, whoever bids on it, enough time to produce a good bid. A couple weeks, I think that's too little, isn't it?
Maybe.
Maybe?
It's usually not too little, but
Is that right?
it could be longer.
Okay.
I wanted to.
No, I don't know.
So I started to draft this in April, and focused mostly then to get it in front of you on making sure the filter language was what I think you all really wanted to see. Like, the dates will be corrected, the legal descriptions will be on there. I mean, this is not the final version. This is really, where do you want the filter to be set? So,
That's a good, I mean, your judgment of, I'm used to technical bids, and they take a lot longer to put together than a week.
right. This would be, no, this is more of a development proposal. And that's really kind of a plan. I think we'd like to see some shapes on the site, how would it lay out, and some square footages and some investment numbers. And that's often the basis for selecting a proposal, that you work toward a project agreement with the selected proposal to really, I mean, that's your operative document that says, here's what we are selecting and here are the commitments that run both ways.
Do we still have 3G interested?
Yes.
And have they given you any sort of, I mean, just informally, what they would build there?
Yes.
And was it north of 3 million, I'm sure?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's more in the 6.5, 7.
Did that answer your question, Frank?
Yeah, I think so. Mr. President, you said that this was important to you that this be in concert with our trades district strategy.
Correct.
And do you view that as, Cam has used this word filter here, would that be part of the filter in your view?
Yes, definitely.
And so should that be in this document?
It is in the document.
Okay, and
In fact, it's in there 3 times. Correct, Cam?
and where is that?
Included in the attachments.
Okay,
There's reference to it in the body, and then there's two inclusions in the attachments. One is an overview, and the second is a copy of the actual trades district plan.
but that wasn't sent to us.
That's correct. That was not sent to us.
Okay, and have we seen that on another occasion?
Yes, sir.
The
Trades district plan.
trades district plan, yes.
We have.
That would be
Not the overview. We've never seen the overview.
the overview.
Pardon me?
I'm not sure what you mean by the overview.
Well, isn't there,
There is this reference here that compatibility
hang on a
with
second.
existing redevelopment plans, including the Lawrence Trades District Plan Exhibit A. And I guess my question is, what's Exhibit A?
It is the Lawrence Trades District Plan document that we published early last spring. Was that one? Anyway, I believe that has the Lawrence Trades District logo on it, and it speaks to the focus area and numbers behind it. So
This is a document that was produced by the consulting firm.
yes,
Right.
yes. That plan is set to be Exhibit A to the RFP. Yeah.
Well, Mr. President, my only concern about the numbers is sometimes you start out on a project and you set a minimum, and then something comes in above the minimum, and people sort of forget that it was meant to be a really low floor, a really low screen, and they say, "Oh, isn't this great? We're at 3.5." And when we really never wanted to be anywhere close to 3 to start with, we just so we remember that our goal here is 6 or 7.
Yes.
And that anything that's less than that, we're going to be viewing with a very high degree of skepticism. But we also realize that we want something out there that might turn out to be really, really interesting, and we don't want to chase somebody away who we'd at least want to take a look at. But
I think the distinction I would make is the the floor number in the RFP would allow for, if we were to, if the RDC were to get a proposal that were under that, it could literally disqualify it. If we were to get one that's 3.5, but still didn't really have what we wanted to see, the RDC could still reject that proposal. There's nothing in the language of the RFP that obligates the RDC to accept a proposal that meets the minimum requirements. It just would give you an easy way to disqualify things underneath it.
Then I'll desist. If we were to get a proposal for 3.5, is there anything that would preclude us from negotiating with that bidder to change that into a $7 million project? In other words, are we sort of locked in to whatever we get?
No, I think I do see what you're saying, and
This isn't a situation where we have to choose the highest responsible bidder, right?
right, and that's one of the advantages redevelopment commissions have under state law, is they can consider other factors, and that's why we've wanted to put the Trades District Plan as an exhibit and speak at least to minimum investment. It's not a what is sometimes crassly referred to as a rip and read, where you open whatever the highest bid is, that's what you got to take, and you have to accept it. This would not be that scenario. This is minimum requirements. If it were 3.5, yes, we could provisionally select that and negotiate from there. And again, the idea is once a proposal is selected, then there is a further negotiation process to get to a project agreement. And if that were not to be arrived at, then either party could back out, even if it's been selected as a proposal. So this really is just the first step, and it doesn't obligate the RDC in any way that's, in my view, uncomfortable. So the balance that I sought to make here was, let's make sure there is a floor to sort of minimum investment requirements in the RFP. But, we could certainly make that floor $5 million. My word of caution would be, if it's too high, you've essentially pre-disqualified things that we haven't yet seen to know if it's interesting, even if it were a, $4 million, $3.5 million investment. And if we're certain that we would only want to see proposals that are 6 or 7, then I'm certainly willing to change the RFP language and make it 5, or make it 5.5, or 6. This is just to put something on the table in front of you for discussion. And if that's the feedback, happy to make that change. I think the question really becomes, what do you want the hard floor to be, under which we would really kind of prohibit consideration? A proposal under $3 million with this RFP language wouldn't be worthy of considering, because it would not be a qualified bid. It would not meet the minimum requirements. So we really kind of couldn't consider it. Same if it were 5. If something came in at 4.5, we really couldn't consider it. Although, at least as it stood, we could reject it and wait 30 days and then do a unilateral negotiation. That's in the state law too. If we were to get proposals and not select any of those proposals, then after a 30-day sort of cooling off period, the Redevelopment Commission itself, or by through its staff, could put together and negotiate a unilateral deal on its own. That's an option as well. But you do have to do the RFP first.
I know I said I would desist, but one last
Sure.
question. So suppose we.
One last question, 1 minute.
Suppose we only got a bid for 3.5. That was the only thing that came in.
Okay.
And we're all sort of sitting around here saying that we're probably not going to want to do anything unless it's 6 or 7. So somebody's gone to a lot of trouble to submit something at 3.5. And we turn around and say to that bidder, sorry, we really weren't we really were never interested in anything at that level anyway. Does that do anything to our credibility as an entity that we would put an enterprise through a whole lot of trouble and effort when we're really not interested? And does this hurt us in the long run as an entity that isn't really saying what it means when we go out to the public? I'm sort of looking at my earlier question from the other end now, and that's saying that if we're really not going to do anything, does that do anything to our credibility in our various constituencies?
It's a good question. I think that's something for you all to decide. If you're asking me for my opinion, I would say no. It happens all the time. But that's really, again, your call to make. If you would not want to put somebody in that situation, then we can by all means raise the floor.
There's and not to belabor this either because we're going to move on, but as part of the project planning that goes into this, where they submit the project plan, then we agree to their project plan. Here's what you're going to do in order for us to sell this to do. You're obligated to do these things, okay? I think we need to be careful on both sides of that. If somebody came to us and said $3.5 million initially, and if market conditions allow, we're going to expand to this. This is our business plan. I'd be fine with that. We've done some things like that at the fort through the FHRA, most notably Bloomerang, and they're due to market conditions and the way they've grown. They're outrageously successful.
Yes.
That may not be the case initially. So, I mean, it's you kind of got to go both sides of this thing. As long as you've got a minimal, if at $3.5 million, I take it that we're going to be fine. It's going to make a contribution to our plan. And tax-wise, I mean, it'll provide revenues from the, et cetera. So
tax-wise, it's zeroed out, so to speak. So
then
it's a benefit.
Things don't work back, I'm sure you're going to build in some clawbacks, and
Oh, yes.
yeah, so we're fine. We should be okay. Right. I don't mean to be putting words in your mouth, but that's
No, that's accurate. I think you're right.
so. I guess, commissioners, are we okay with moving forward with this?
Well, I'm debating between 3 or 4 million. If we're shooting for 6 to 7, there needs to be some number that, okay, we're now in the realm of, we can massage this and make it work. 3 seems a little low, but again, I heard Cam loud and clear. Personally, I think 4, but I'm not looking to make Cam and anybody do more work.
Well, that's easy enough, and certainly open to that suggestion. The 3, once you're in the 2, 3, 4, 5, I mean, it's a little bit.
Well, let's take.
Because I'm over crunching the 3.75 acres and
Yeah,
163,000 square feet, and it just seems like you're right that, and especially if we know we've got one interested party, how interested I don't know, but and they're in at 6 to 7, might not make the floor 4.
Sure.
That's just my logic.
I'm fine with 4. David,
4.
Great.
Frank, you going to be okay there?
Yes, so long as we don't have to accept anything.
Correct.
Do not. Correct.
We're a long way from a project.
And yeah, take it from your
Yeah.
legal counsel. I would say no, but
So, move forward with this?
At 4?
At 4.
Sure.
Okay. Cam,
we'll do.
thank you very much. We have one other piece of business that we need to care for,
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
It's the resolution number 3 2018, is that, did I say that correctly? Resolution of the Lawrence Development Commission to accept Service Master's bid for Shadeland Avenue property. And David and Cameron, we've got 5 minutes.
Yeah. So, I'm happy to start with your question if you have one, Commissioner
We
Sullivan.
talked about this before,
Oh,
right?
yes.
I move the approval of the resolution.
Seconded.
I just want to make a comment. I think it's job well done on this.
Oh, yeah,
one.
definitely.
I've seen that property for a long time. I think it's a job well done, and I'm all in favor, so I second.
Excellent. All in favor? Took less than a minute.
I came here straight from there and met with the bidder. They made a written request to view the property, so I took them through it, and they, actually, I left them in my car. I have copies of the proposal that you can all see. I think, to sum it up, they met the minimum purchase price, $201,550. They will be bringing 45 employees to the site. It goes back on the tax rolls. They're paying us cash. They want to close in 30 days. And the renderings, they had a local architect put together, look extremely positive. There's certainly mold in that building. And the fact that it's going to a remediation company makes a lot of sense. They'll be able to remediate that and make good use of the property. So I think it's a good win for the area, positive use of that property and for the corridor. So yes, I know you've already approved it.
Anything to add there, David?
But
No,
you
just
made
telling
it,
him that you guys already approved it.
but they made it too easy.
I know. The next meeting of the Redevelopment Commission is for May 22nd. Bruce will be here for that meeting, and he wanted to be here for Bill's explanation of where we stand with our two sewer project, or what am I saying, stormwater development projects. One on one side of the railroad tracks that directly affects our trades district, and the one on the other side of the railroad tracks that affects our trades district project indirectly, and that also affects that whole neighborhood. It has for decades. So he'll be prepared to talk about both of those things. You may recall that Bruce and I mentioned that we had had conversations with Bill before, and he's going to try and have Shrewsbury here also, so that if we want to get a little technical, they're prepared to do that as well, because it's actually their project.
That's the engineering firm working on the projects, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Other than that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
May I address the commission, Mr. President?
Very briefly.
Very briefly.
I know you.
For the record, Chris Barnett from Lawrence Community Development Corporation. I appear to thank the commission for the grant of properties over the last couple of years. In the last 30 days, the final property granted to us for rapid rehabilitation has been completed and dedicated as a habitat home on Kitley Avenue. Just for the record, we have now done 4 properties with you: 4402 Clinton, 4624 Woodcroft, 8266 East 48th, and 4735 Kitley Avenue. And it has been a privilege and a wonderful experience to work with the city and with Habitat for Humanity to get those properties owned by residents of the city of Lawrence and back on the tax rolls and back paying utility service fees as well. So it's a win all the way around for everybody. And I want to thank the commission for extending yourselves to take control of those properties and turn them over to us.
Thank you, Chris. Good job.
How can we get you 4 more?
We keep watching. We lost one. There was one that failed to get bids in the tax sale, and for some reason the county commissioners allowed the former owner to redeem it 3 months after the tax sale instead of taking title to it. And that was one that we would have asked you to take. So the workings of the treasurer's office are sometimes a little mysterious in this regard. I think Cam might second that.
Chris does keep close watch of those lists, and so any things that fall through the cracks in market failure that
Okay.
we look.
Mr. President, I just want to, on behalf of the commission, thank the Community Redevelopment Corporation for its good work on this, and maybe ask if the minutes could reflect the addresses of those 4 properties, so that we sort of have in our,
He's got it. He does an excellent job with the minutes.
And if you need them confirmed, I can easily confirm them for you.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Now we have a motion to adjourn.
so move.
Second, Mr. Commissioner Blunt. Frank, Commissioner Blunt. All in favor by show of hands. Thank you very much, gentlemen.